will do this person.
Let's go. Sorry.
Who is this? I'm so confused.
Oh, nice to meet you. I mean, I'm friends with like Danny and Dean and them, so I think we kind of share a community. I definitely disagree with you. I wanted to comment on a few things since I am pro-life. My view doesn't fall to the embryo rescue case, so I wanted to see how you respond to this. So I hold a harm theoretic view. I can explain what it is, but it's the future like ours view. In that case, the harm of death is analyzed as a function of certain goods. So those goods are going to be a measurement of deprivation. So the amount of goods you're deprived of if someone kills you, or sorry, unalives you, TikTok language. And then the second part of the function is going to be sort of a gradualist inspired view. So it's kind of like as you age, your value increases because you have more robust psychological traits, psychological continuity, and consciousness. So when you combine those two together, you're able to say that in most cases, abortion is morally impermissible, but in the embryo rescue cases, you have no good reason to save the embryos over the 5-year-old child.
Okay, so I'm a little bit confused. Are you saying that like someone increases in value as they get older?
Yes, and it's compatible because it's a function. So it's a function of that plus how much they're deprived of their future if you take it away from them.
Can you explain that, like the relation between those two a little bit more?
Yeah, so I think I could best do it through example. So if you were to give me the trolley problem and you tell me, okay, well, you have an infant and you have an old person, presumably they both have equal rights in a, a legal and a moral sense. They have equal rights. But if I had to choose and I look at the function that I just listed, it seems like the infant maybe lacks robust psychological states, but has a large future ahead. Presumably she has a large future ahead.
Yeah.
And so with the old person, yes, they have robust psychological traits, but they lack the future ahead. And so if I had to choose, it seems like the older person is less harmed by death than the infant. So I have good justification to choose the infant. And I say that same line of logic follows with the embryo rescue cases.
I mean, okay, I guess we would just have to like assume that like, again, there's just like more value in this potential for future life. I just don't know that I would agree that like I would value the same thing. Like I think that what I value again is this conscious experience, no matter like kind of what body it is in. And I don't know that there's a consensus on us like valuing like people who have more future potential compared to not. So I think it's going to be like, this is an interesting question. I think I've thought about it to an extent. I just don't know how we can kind of like stratify this. I think that like what's most consistent is just like the capacity for consciousness, like having that.
One small correction. I'm not just saying potential future. I'm actually making a probabilistic claim. So I'm saying, if you're familiar with possible world semantics, you can think of it in a counterfactual sense. So in the, the nearest possible world, if you didn't do this act, if you didn't do X, then Y would have occurred. So that's sort of the logic I'm applying here. If you don't get an abortion, it is likely past, I think, 3 to 4 weeks that the fetus will have the future. It's potential is a little I'm saying probabilistically it's true, which is a little bit stronger. And then my response to you is, are you just reporting a value about you caring about consciousness? Or are you saying that as a society, there's a strong intuition we tend to care about consciousness as a property?
I think that both are true. And I think that like also when it comes to just like how we make legislation on things, we make it based more off of, again, the thing that you actually have. For example, I mean, we could also say that like an 18-year-old, like if all things go well, like there's a good chance, I don't know exactly the language you use, but like assume I'm applying the same language, that like in the next 3 years, you become 21, right? If all things go well, you will become 21, you'll develop into a 21-year-old. But we still like place some restrictions on the 18-year-old because they aren't 21 yet, right? So I'm saying this capacity and having that just in of itself is probably the most valuable thing.
Yeah, okay. It gets a little tricky when we're talking about morality. I can get into that a little bit more, but I am curious about the larger claim. So I actually have the intuition that most people don't really care upon reflection about consciousness as a property. Do you think the fact that most people are not vegan is good evidence that most people don't value consciousness as a property?
Hold on. I mean, first of all, I mean human consciousness, but also I do want to get more into like the question I asked. Like, should we treat an 18-year-old like probabilistically that will turn into a 21-year-old as a 21-year-old?
No, that wouldn't follow.
Why not?
Because so when I say it doesn't follow, I'm not seeing the inference unless you want to show me the inference.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm saying like, right. So is this like connection to consciousness important to your argument that like a fetus before how many weeks is it? Like a fetus before having conscious experience is going to likely going to follow that they will have it. Right.
Yeah. So, and the claim I'm making, just so I can kind of fast forward the conversation, is that it's a specific view in the philosophy of harm of death. That doesn't mean that this principle about oh, if you're going to obtain something, whatever it is, anything in life, then you'd kind of have a right to it at that moment. That's what I'm saying. That doesn't follow from what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay. So what does follow from it?
What follows from it is that abortion is morally impermissible in most cases. It's just a specific view about death. And that would apply to actually born people too.
How is it connected to death again, really quickly?
Yeah. So as I stated earlier, there's a way that you can, so there's harm theoretic views in the abortion literature, which basically say that regardless of the type of being it is, the substance that it has, you can actually say if abortion is wrong via the analysis of how the fetus can be harmed by death, to what extent, if it's robustly meaningful or not.
Right. So how they will be harmed by death is what's important?
Yeah, that's what we're analyzing. If death harms the fetus like it would harm you or me if we died today.
Okay. And you're comparing that. Is it because like they're being robbed of like, again, the future, experience and in the way that you explained it, like probabilistically, or is it?
Yeah, they would meet that strong first condition that I listed, which is a deprivationist account of harm. And they don't necessarily meet the second one, but it's just sufficient, not necessary.
Okay. So you're saying that because of like the potential, like the future, like I know it's not potential, but the probabilistic future that they're going to have, they're being deprived of that?
Yeah, and I'm actually drawing the parallel. So what I'm actually saying is I'm giving an explanatory case for why death is harmful for you and I, and I'm applying that same reasoning to the fetus. And I'm saying if you'd like to reject it, you can provide a counter argument that provides more explanatory power and maps onto our ethical intuitions.
Yeah, so first of all, I think that like, so it's almost just like they have an even longer probabilistical future, like even compared to like someone who is like I don't know, like 70 years old, right? Like, so if you were to have a fetus versus a 70-year-old and you could unalive one of them, right? You would choose the 70-year-old.
I actually would need more context. Like if the 7-year-old I knew was going to die in the next month, I wouldn't.
Okay. Yeah. Let's just assume that like, there's like, yeah, this fetus is just like, there's nothing that's going to happen. And then the 70-year-old, I don't think we can make a claim on like, let's even just use like a 30-year-old, right? Like a 30-year-old.
Oh, then the 30-year-old for sure. Because what they have is they meet both conditions and the fetus doesn't meet the latter. So if it was a trolley problem, I'd choose 30-year-old. Yeah.
Sorry, my audio cut out. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. So let's just go back to the 7-year-old then. I'm just interested to like kind of play with like the differences. Okay. So there's a 70-year-old and there's a fetus. Which one are we choosing again?
And just so I'm clear on the case, so the 7-year-old, we're unsure when they're going to die. And the fetus, we know that they're going to survive if you don't get an abortion?
I mean, I think it's kind of hard to say because I think in any context, like when we're assessing these things, we have to kind of look at them like at a realistic standpoint where it's like you don't really know when a 7-year-old is going to die. You probably don't really know like the trajectory of like the fetus's life and how it's going to work. The fetus could also die at like 5, or sorry, I should not be saying that, unalive. Unalive. Thank you so much for the roses, by the way, at like 5 or something like that. But like, I mean, I don't really know what like the most standardized way would be to like set it up.
I think so. I'll kind of explain the case I'm giving here. So the case I'm giving is one that I think provides more explanatory power than just the consciousness view. So what I'm saying is I care about consciousness. That's the second condition I gave, which is this whole thing about psychological continuity, psychological traits, and them being robustly meaningful. I agree with you there. But what I'm saying is that I think deprivation actually provides a better answer for why death is harmful. I actually don't think that my life would be harmed, I don't think that death would harm me just because of the accomplishments I already met in the past. I actually think it's because the ones I want to continue to do and someone's ripping that away from me. So I'm kind of saying if that follows, right? Like if it follows that the fetus isn't going to die, then it seems like they have a similar thing that I'm describing right now.
Right. So we're kind of assessing people based on like the probabilistic future they have. I just don't know how much I would even like agree to that. Like, I think in the most part, I don't want to assess people. Thank you so much for the gifts, by the way. Based on how much of like a probability of a future they'd have. I'd more so want like some type of constant so that we're not like, putting people on like this value laden hierarchy based on this probability of future they have. Thank you guys again for the gifts.
Do you mind? So what I can do is maybe we can sort of look at a couple of cases. So I want to see, what I want to do is kind of show you that my view, again, it provides explanatory power, but it also covers cases that yours can't. So take this case, for example, and it's a hypothetical case. It's a fetus has some developmental condition such that they don't they don't develop on the same neurological trajectory that you would standardly see a fetus develop on. So say that they're born in this comatose state. Pretty much it's stipulated that if you were to run EEG waves, the fetus would have the brain anatomy and structures neurologically of like a 6-week-old in utero fetus. So presumably under most people's view, they're just not conscious. But doctors stipulate that in 3 months, the fetus will wake up. Do you think that the parents would have a right to unalive the comatose infant at that state?
Wait, hold on. So it doesn't have the capacity for consciousness in a neurological way, correct?
Depends how you define capacity. If you define capacity as it will, then
No.
yes. But if you define it as right now, no.
No. Okay. Yeah. So I would say I think that based on the science that we currently have surrounding consciousness in general, we're going to look at the thalamus and how it interacts with the cerebral cortex. And that's when we see that these
Yeah, that's not there. Those aren't there. I just want to fast forward.
Then I probably wouldn't, I wouldn't think that it should.
Okay, so just so I want to be clear on your view, so I don't want to misrepresent or strawman you. So if you had a comatose infant in the situation that I described, doctors stipulate it will speed up in 3 months and wake up and have the rest of their lives. You think that this comatose infant, if the parents wanted to kill it, would not?
What do you mean by wake up?
Oh, I mean come out of that state. So essentially, they're in this comatose state, and it's stipulated that they don't have the brain anatomy, but they will in 3 months.
Yeah. So I think what we also find important is things past experience, past conscious experience as well. And this is going to be, I almost think this is very similar. It's just how fetuses kind of exist currently, where it's just and at some point they're going to, achieve all of these faculties for experience, right?
But I want to see, I want to see how you're answering this because I'm a little bit unclear. Are you saying that they would be harmed or no?
No, I'm saying that that would be okay. I just don't think that that's a problem.
Okay, if parents want to kill a comatose infant, that'd be okay. Okay, so what I take that to be a reductio to your view, meaning if people are neutral on abortion watching this, I hope that gives them reason to maybe favor my view over yours. Very similarly, what about the same case I gave you?
Is this not a fetus though? Are we talking about a fetus or
a comatose infant?
Okay, so has the infant had prior experience?
No.
Prior conscious experience?
No, will in 3 months though.
Yeah, no, I would disagree.
Yeah, so I just take that to be reductive against your view. And then very similarly, I'm going to explain how I also think it's ad hoc. So take the very same case, but stipulate that this whole developmental issue actually happens 2 seconds after birth. So the only sentient experience they've had is in utero, which is, at least in my opinion, very trivial. It's not they don't have robust psychological traits, but they're born into a comatose state 2 seconds after birth. Very similarly, in 3 months, they'll wake up. Do you think they're harmed by death in the same way?
They also had the conscious experience, right, within the, as a fetus. I think, again, we were talking about 24 to 28 weeks was when, that conscious experience starts to, develop in the fetus, right? So they had that coming, prior, correct?
So I'm stipulating that they had a quote-unquote sentient experience, whatever that means to you, in utero only, and they're born into a comatose state.
They had the in utero, so they essentially had that personhood prior. They don't have it now, or they had 2 seconds of that experience outside the womb, and then now they don't, right? So first of all, I think I would also say, they still had some prior experience, so I'd probably say no, but I do think that this view of, you're kind of bringing fringe cases, which I wouldn't now make a stipulation on the view entirely, just because of certain fringe cases that are just not likely. I think that in most cases we're going to see that fetuses are going to start to exist as conscious beings around this 6 month to 7 month mark, which is important. And I don't think this is going to again take away this is going to be a general principle. Obviously we cannot account for every single fringe circumstance, but either way, it did have a past conscious experience as well. So I think that's going to be a gray area of the framework now.
Yeah.
Gray area of the framework now.
Yeah. I think absurd, in a reductio, and then the second one seems ad hoc. They're very, very similar. A lot of people actually have the moral intuition that I've talked to that they're both harmed by death, but it's kind of hard to find a good explanation. That's my first point. My second point is that I think fringe cases can actually be a cost to your view, considering that you didn't respond and say it's ambiguous. You responded with a moral judgment. That moral judgment I took to be a reductio. So saying it's a fringe case.
So for the first one, you said that for. The second one, I think both are fringe cases. But for the second one, I actually said that it would most likely be a gray area. I think both would probably be a gray area. I was more making an intuitive yes for the first one, but either way, I just don't think that they're going to count for majority of the cases we're going to see in regards to just abortion.
Okay, and just my last point. Sorry, if you have questions for me, I'm totally down to cycle out and come back. But my last question, you brought up that people tend to value consciousness. I brought up the veganism point, and you were saying, well, people tend to value human consciousness. I actually don't. Depending on how you define consciousness, I don't think there's a meaningful moral difference. Do you mind kind of laying that view out for me?
Yeah, so this is something we're gonna get. I know about the whole philosophical vegan discussion that we've had. I think this point of view is gonna be more in relation to just like general, like societal, like judgments. But I'd probably say that like, yeah, there's something about like human consciousness that we think is more important. Probably like the fact that like human consciousness in general, not in like not within human consciousness, but like compared to like other animals, like there is something more.
Sorry, how do you define consciousness? I think I missed that.
Yeah, so it's going to be just like the ability to be self-aware and have like some type of subjective experience, etc. There's more, you can get more into detail with that.
Okay, but I agree that, as I stated in my view, so I actually think consciousness is a very morally relevant property when you're assessing like if things can suffer or not. So just with that being said, I think both animals and humans have a subjective first-person experience. I think that's sufficient enough to be extremely harmed by death. Like, I think that actually gives you the ability to suffer. And so,
are you vegan, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So my next question. Well, I've been like vegan for 10 years, and then went and started eating tuna, and then went back. But anyways, so my question is, in that case, if you accept that definition, they're both conscious, then you're kind of adding these other traits that humans typically have, and you hold the view that it's just typically, right? That not that humans necessarily have it.
Yeah. So again, this is like a view like I'm taking as I haven't made myself well versed in like the veganism argument, so I intend to. But like I think I was making a judgment on like what societally we tend to value is human consciousness, and the same thing goes for like our intuitions about just like what makes humans value. So it's kind of just like an analysis of like civically, like assuming that there's something valuable about humans. This is where we're going to make the argument from. So, yeah, I think that's where I was coming from with the argument. It's not from like my refined views as I know. I think I do agree with this in regards to like specifically human consciousness, but in regards to human consciousness related to like animal consciousness, I haven't like refined my views in like that framework.
Okay. I do have to go to Pilates, but it's nice talking to you. Thanks for like getting me up, and I will come back if you're live with this topic again. We can finish.
Yeah, sure. All right.
Okay.
Nice meeting you.
Bye.